Welcome everybody to episode 10 of Cut to the Jase. Another big episode ahead. I'm your host or co-host, sorry, Braden Hazelhurst, the editor of basketball.com.au, and of course joined by the main man, Jason Cadee. And Jase, bit of a different week in basketball this week. We got no NBL, we got the Boomers and Tall Blacks, bit of a fever break. So we've got a bit of a different show ahead as well, but a very special guest. We've got Arizona Wildcats star and Australian Anthony Dell'Orso on today, so should be another big one.
Yeah, no, it's obviously this fever break was always a weird time as a player because you're kind of right in the thick of the season, then all of a sudden everything stops. And it's one of those periods where I've actually found as a club, you can either set yourself up for the back end of the season or you can destroy it by doing too much and overtraining and trying to almost just turn into a preseason. So be very interested how teams handle it. I think it's great if you're a club and you've got some guys playing for Australia and New Zealand, the fact they just play in Australia and New Zealand, I think that's great. But yeah, I think the first kind of, if you want to call it the first third of the season, almost halfway, has been very, very interesting. So I'm pretty interested what happens coming out of this fever break for a lot of teams, given the changes and some injuries and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll chat about the Boomers and Tall Blacks games really quickly before we head into our interview. But our guest today, Anthony Dell'Orso, having a heck of a start to the season in the NCAA with Arizona, who was 6-0, had some big wins. Florida beat fellow Aussie Alex Condon and the defending champs in the Gators. They also recently beat UConn, and Dan Hurley, known as one of the best college coaches going around, had some very special words to say about him after. So should be good to have him on today. But Jace, going back to what you said, the Boomers versus Tall Blacks, 2-game series starting this weekend in Hobart and then followed up in New Zealand after that. Now, I'm a really big fan of this. New Zealand haven't been that successful against the Boomers, but I just remember growing up and seeing, that rivalry and seeing some intense games, seeing some scuffles and how much passion both teams and players had for their country and everything. It's great to see this back, and I'd really like to see this as a fixture each and every year.
No, I think it's one of those things, as you said, a lot of us grew up with that. And even myself, well, that's a lot of the series. It was just that. It wasn't playing in Oceania against all these other teams. Just you play New Zealand, that's it. So I think it's great to see. I think it's actually, if you think about the scheduling, I think it's really smart. It just makes a lot of sense if Australia and New Zealand are in that pool together to do something like this, where it's like you play them in a 2-game series almost. I think it adds for us as spectators and us wanting to enjoy it, but also for the players. They're both pretty good teams. So, let's see what adjustments they make and how it is. And let's see if it's still that kind of chirpiness, chippiness, whatever you want to say, that we're used to seeing, where we've seen some almighty, some pushing shoves and everything you can think of in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll jump into a quick preview of the game. Now, Jace, before Shea Ely actually got injured, I had New Zealand as the favourites considering the team they had, more because of the size and the big man stocks they had. Tyrell Harrison, Sam Mananga, they had a lot of great bigs in that team. And then, to me, Shea Ely was enough to tie down the guard area. Now, with him out, I think that gives the Boomers a little bit of an advantage. Of course, they're without Will Magnay, the skipper. Keanu Pinder comes in for him. What are your thoughts on how this series may pan out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one, just because I think, as you said, both teams have named pretty strong sides. New Zealand's probably not fully, but almost at full strength with what they've gone to name. And losing Shea, he's such a critical piece to whatever team he's on ultimately, but especially New Zealand. He's one of those guys that whenever he plays for that jersey, it's like he just gets even better for it. He does more. He's more aggressive offensively. You've seen it so many tournaments. So I think it's Australia's to lose. I think they to me should be the strongest side coming off the Asia Cup and things like that. And obviously they've kept a portion of that crew together, which they were able to. So I'm looking to guys who have maybe had not as much opportunity for different reasons in the NBL to go back in that environment and step up. And someone like Jalen Galloway, I think this series is his for the taking. Just given what we saw him do earlier in the year and his glimpses amongst his time in Sydney, I just see someone like him as as being big time. And I think having Keanu Pinder and Nick Kay and Jack White and those guys come back in, I think that'll help against the big men that you spoke about.
Yeah, absolutely, and great to see Nick Kay back in the Boomers uniform. Of course, with having the break from the Japanese season as well. I assume he takes the captaincy over with Will Magnay out. So a great series coming up this weekend. Really looking forward to it. But that's just our quick preview because we've got a big interview and some other stuff to get into. So let's get on to our chat with Arizona Wildcats guard Anthony Dell'Orso. Welcome back, everyone, to Cut to the Jase. We said when we started this podcast that we were going to take basketball fans all around the world and check in on Aussies everywhere. Well, today we've got a very special guest, an Australian playing the NCAA Division I men's basketball, playing for a powerhouse in the Arizona Wildcats. We've got Anthony Dell'Orso on. Anthony, great to have you on, mate. Awesome start to the season for you guys, both individually and the team, off to a 6-0 start. You must be happy with the way everything's going at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, for sure. Team's doing good right now, getting some early success. So, everything's looking good.
Before I get into the serious questions, and when I say serious, they're not really serious. I got told before you jumped on, and then you jumped on, and your name on the screen is Delhi. Now, I only know one Delhi. You're now the second Delhi. How long have people been calling you Delhi for?
Really since probably I was probably 15. One coach just said it. I was actually back in Bulleen playing for the Boomers, and my coach just like came up with it one day, and then it just kind of stuck. So
Okay, so I now know two Delhis. So pretty good company, the Delhi you're associated with.
yeah, for sure. That's a legend right there.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to bounce around a little bit. And so we go back to like your journey coming through juniors. You end up playing at the 2022 under 20 nationals, and then you go on to play for Campbell University. You have a very good nationals, which probably leads to the college. Was college always a vision you had growing up, or was something that just as you kind of got older and it became an option, it was something you just couldn't help but pass up and go and do?
No, it was really a bit in the air. I always wanted to kind of stay home and try and get somewhere in the NBL. Try and find one of my good mates, actually, Owen Foxwell. He plays for Phoenix right now. We were, super close growing up, and we were both trying to get into the NBL, and that was kind of around that COVID time. So it was a little difficult. And it just kind of never panned out. And I had the nationals the year before. And really it was a complete toss up. Like I had no idea, I wanted to go to college, had zero offers. So it was kind of coming to the point where it was like, well, I may want to do that, but I can't because I don't have anything. Um, I had actually got hurt in right before the next nationals for my top age year. So I had no ability to come to the States to play, no ability to play nationals. I had to miss it with zero offers going into like June. And if anyone knows the college system, June is like prime time. Like if you don't have
Yeah.
if you don't have something going by then, you're basically cooked. So that was me. Pretty much planned on reclassing, we call it over here. Basically was going to sit out for a whole year and be like, I got to wait till next year if I want to make something happen. Was about to apply for a job at the local Safeway or something like that. And yeah, my Campbell coach literally called me. It was at 8 a.m. one morning and was like, hey, we saw this on YouTube. And I was like, no way. Like I didn't believe him. And then he's like, yeah, we like this and that. And what do you think about a visit? And then they scheduled it next week. I visited and I signed.
That's crazy. Really cool though, because a lot of people don't understand that college landscape is so different at times, and things can just go crazy in one period of time. Then all of a sudden, it just leads to exactly what you said. Talk to us quickly before we get into it. Talk to us quickly about your time at Campbell. Obviously, as you just explained, like it came out of nowhere, an opportunity that you just took and ran with. Obviously, what was your time like there for the 2 years you did spend there?
It's great. I mean, that university, I'll always have my respect for that place. That kind of built me into who I am today. The connections I built from there, smaller school in North Carolina, you get that real family aspect. You get that real kind of close-knit community. So that place is definitely, a place I can call home forever. And those coaches have been great guys. I mean, they've gone on to coach at big schools, and my ex-teammates I used to have there, they gone on to play pro in different countries. So it's a great, spot that I was at in terms of developing me. Um, and yeah, I give all my kind of gratitude to that place. They took a chance on me and got me to, now Arizona and hopefully further on.
Yeah, well, you rewarded them, right? Yeah, like your 2 years at Campbell, you played really well, and your second year particularly, you averaged 19 points a game, you shoot the three at 38%. So it wasn't like a place you just stopped in at. You actually went and made an impact. And then that obviously leads to a change. You go to Arizona. Um, we've all who've played and know of a school like Arizona. It's a big school, has a long history of having high, incredible players. What led to that move? And then how did that play out with Arizona and where you ultimately ended up?
Yeah, so having that good kind of had both good years at Campbell gave me a good kind of ability to hit the portal and kind of look around. And kind of had a bunch of schools, especially my second year. I basically had anywhere I could have gone. And that can be a difficult process. As fun as it sounds, it can really be a tough challenge. Um, and I spoke to Coach Tommy. He just called me, and Coach Murph, and they just basically called me one day and was like, "This is what it is." Like, explain the whole deal, explain the situation, explain what they're looking for. That they've been missing in the previous years, and I already knew Arizona fairly well, as you said. It's a well-known school, so I already knew a decent amount about them, about the way they play, and the way that Tommy has a unique way of developing international guys. He's got that resume that stood out to me, and that's the ultimate reason why I took it. I trust his ability to work with, FIBA guys and how he can kind of transfer them into NBA products. So that's really what all went into my decision.
It's had some Aussie flavour there. Josh Green, obviously, probably the most recent Australian to go through there. But then there's a whole list like we spoke about. What's the experience been like so far? Obviously, you spent last year and now you're underway this year. What's that experience been like playing in a school like that? There's been so many stories. I remember when I was coming through, it was like known as like the party school. And just it had party school for multiple reasons, but also the atmosphere it creates at sporting events. What's that experience been like so far?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's no joke. People say it's a party school for a multitude of reasons. Coming from a smaller school, we had as much probably fans as we could get with the capacity we had, but you come to a place like this and it's on from the jump. Like every game, doesn't matter who you play. Like we had a game last night that was I think a blowout in the first 2 minutes, and there was still 14 some thousand there. Like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving weekend, like no one cares about that stuff. Like U of A basketball is the whole city, honestly. Like that's my favorite thing about being here is that the city of Tucson like lives, breathes, and dies U of A basketball. And that's the best feeling because you can go to a lot of other schools. We play big games all the time, and some schools don't get that. It's really unique to find that. Um, so this is a really special place. I think everyone kind of comes here and expects a good time, and they always get it.
So far, because obviously your home games, you get it every game. But what's your favorite away venue? Who's the favorite team when you go on the road? You're like, this is a great atmosphere.
Well, we just had UConn at UConn, which was pretty special. Obviously, got the win there, and that place was wide out and the whole bit. So that was pretty cool. We had the week before that we had UCLA in LA. That's a big rival game for us. So that almost is like the biggest game on the schedule at that time because we hate UCLA. So that was pretty cool. A lot of good moments. I mean, it's hard not to mention home because home crowd is just it's unbeatable. But that those road wins when you play against those 20,000, screaming at you, that's the best feeling you can get.
No, 100%. Last year, you get all the way through to the Sweet 16 and you lose in a pretty epic game against Duke. Has guys like Tyrese Proctor, obviously Australian kid, Cooper Flag. What are some of your memories of that game in particular, but also like being in that NCAA tournament?
Yeah, March Madness is everything that you can possibly think of. I mean, my freshman year we came 4 points short of making it, um, and that was heartbreaking. And then to get to my junior year and finally make it, it's as special as you can possibly think. I mean, every basket feels like it's a 20 pointer. Nothing feels like simple. Everything feels dragged out, and the adrenaline's so high because, I mean, that's it. It's the final stop. Nothing else matters before that. Nothing else matters after that. It's just every possession is so tense. So, um, it's the best. The crowd gets into it. You got multiple teams in multiple new cities. Um, it's a great feeling. Obviously, we went on to play Duke, and they had a hell of a team, and we basically gave them our best shot, and they still got us. So, but that was a great experience. I mean, whether it's for you, whether you're playing good or playing bad, it doesn't matter. That time of the year is when the team gets the closest, and that's when you really make something special.
It's an incredible thing to watch from afar. Like if you're a basketball person, everyone knows about March Madness, right? So I can only imagine actually playing it, especially when you're playing teams like Duke and the roster they had last year. It only adds to the experience and the memories you have of stuff. Now this year, last year you started all 26 games. This year, you've taken the role off the bench and you're playing more minutes. You're being even more productive. How have you found that transition? And now I'm always a big believer in, I don't think it matters if you start or come off the bench as long as you play the minutes. And to me, finishing games is probably more important than starting. How have you found that transition? And were there some things coming out of last year when you've moved into a bigger conference that you focused on this year, knowing it could help you play longer minutes?
Yeah, so the starting deal definitely, it was a tough transition. It's always a work in progress, especially, you know, most kids come into college as, starting all your life, being the guy all your life. And, you step up from high school, now all of a sudden you got a lot of guys that are great players. This year has been a little different. Like you said, last year I started all year, this year coming off the bench, but kind of finishing games. I don't really have a whole lot of preference. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm playing key minutes, I'm finishing the game, and when the stuff really matters, I'm out there. So that's what's most important, obviously. Um, but yeah, I mean, the role, I don't think defines you based on your starting or benching. I don't think that matters. I think it's what the plan is, and I think as you said, guys who are basketball minds or people who understand the game, there's a coaching aspect of the game, and not everything is just, well, here are my five best guys and the rest are worse. It's not how it works. Especially the higher up you go, the more of a coaching chess match it is. So in this case, if coach thinks he has an advantage doing this and it's working, and like you said, I'm more efficient and I'm playing more minutes, if that works, it works, and I'm cool with it. So that's kind of what's going on there. And to the second question, definitely stepping up from the mid-major level to this level was the physicality. That's something that I took really seriously this offseason. Um, just basically in the weight room, almost put a basketball on a back burner, if you will, and just took the weight room like it was like the most serious thing in the world. My strength coach here, Coach Rounds, I came home for a couple of weeks, was down with the Phoenix boys, getting the lift with them, eating a bunch, home cooking, all that kind of stuff. You can't really take that for granted, when you want to be a pro. That's the ultimate. That's the fuel. That's the preparation. It's not how much shots you get up. I mean, that is a part of it, but you got to really take all that extra stuff seriously if you want to be able to get to where you want to get to. So, I was able to fortunately get that, and it worked to my favor. I had a lot of guys support me, and I was able to get. I mean, that Duke game. I've said this a million times. That Duke game, I was 183 pounds, and I was going against guys that were 210, and it was like every night was a war. Like you come out of that, your body hurts, you can't physically compete sometimes. And then this year I come back and I'm 210, and it's just a completely different world. So I think that was definitely the biggest thing I did all year.
Yeah, it's crazy how people get so caught up in one aspect of the game when there's so many different things that go into it, which might seem like little improvements, but they actually make such a big difference. This year, your group obviously off to a flying start, as Braden said at the start, and you've had some big wins. You go and beat Florida, you beat UConn. Is there a feeling within your group, even though, listen, it is early, but is there a feeling within your group like we are on track to do something special and we can do something special if we keep continuing on this path?
Absolutely. I think that belief is the one of the strongest things you can have. I mean, honestly, I don't really think the record matters a whole lot. I think it's really just the trust you have in your guys and how much belief you have in the right moments that you're going to execute. So we definitely got off to a great start. We got strong belief we'll ever have. I don't think a couple losses or wins really changes that. I think the most important thing is staying level headed, not thinking we're the best team ever and it's just going to happen, because that's when you start to get that's when you start getting all mixed up and guys start getting in different zones. So I think as long as we stay level headed and keep working on practice and getting better, then I think we'll be in good shape.
No, it's a great mindset to it all. I'm gonna go and read this actually because I don't want to mess it up. So after you play UConn, and you didn't have the greatest game against UConn, you played well, but it wasn't like you were some stud and had 30 points against them.
Yep.
But Dan Hurley makes note of you in his presser, and he says, I think he's going to make an NBA team just because he's got size and he shoots it with the way the new NBA plays. I know he wasn't good tonight, but that guy is maybe the best bench player in the country. Now, as an athlete, sometimes you try and block things out, but if you just sit there and take that in, knowing who Dan Hurley is and his presence in the game, what do you think about comments like that, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear. Obviously, he's a notable coach and one of the best to do it with his resume and stuff like that. And it makes you feel good. Obviously, you want to hear that stuff. Especially on a night that probably wasn't my best night, but um, I appreciate him saying that. I didn't, that doesn't change any of the way I go about things. It's not going to change any of the way I think about the game or the way I go about, getting ready for games and stuff like that. It's a process, and then there's multiple people that you think are NBA guys that may not make it or may make it. And it's a process. So yeah, I appreciate him saying that, but I'm just taking it one day at a time, and when the NBA comes around, at the end of the season, then I'll go full throttle on that.
The one thing for me is because, as we said just before, people get so caught up, right, in starting, coming off the bench, what are they doing, what's their role, all these different things. Sometimes you get lost in the fact that if you can just be a star in whatever role you're given, it ends up playing the biggest part. For me, hearing that comment for you, like, I just feel like, is it a bit of also, you made this decision to go to a bigger school, you started last year, and now you're coming off the bench. So to be recognized from an opposition coach, doesn't matter who it is, do you just feel like it's also a bit of gratification of like, I'm doing the right thing and I'm starring in that role that I'm given at this time?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's a transition in what role you get. Everywhere you go, it's going to be different, and it takes time to adapt to that. And I think something that I've really focused on is letting go and putting my trust in the right people. I think when you talk about the NBA and you talk about high level basketball and all that kind of stuff around the world, you got to trust that the people who know what they're doing actually know what they're doing. I can't sit here and say that I have to have 50 every game so they can understand that I'm supposed to be starting or I'm supposed to be doing this. Like,
Yeah.
the right people understand the game. And I think he obviously he didn't have to he went out of his way to say that. No one told him to say that. So it shows that he's got a basketball mind. He understands the game. And when it really comes down to it, when the game's on the line, who do you want in the game? Who do you want taking the shots? Who do you want defending the ball? Who do you want doing this? And that's kind of what has allowed me to be so successful in kind of starting and coming off the bench, because it's just, you get relief from that. Someone with that kind of praise says something about that, like it gives you that sense of relief. Like, all right, I'm doing the right things. It's all working out. I don't need to go prove something I haven't done. I can just keep doing the same thing, and the right people will follow.
There's some kids around here that should listen to that, and there's some parents that should also listen to that.
Absolutely.
Especially this day and age. Now, just before we jumped on and started filming, your coach Tommy Lloyd spent some time in Australia. Does he ever speak to you about that? Is there anything he does for you that maybe brings a bit of Australia to you over there?
Yeah, he talks about it. Honestly, I say this all the time. He's an Aussie bloke trapped in an American body. He is the most Aussie guy that I've ever met that's not Aussie. He can't get enough. He talks about his time there. He's got a guy in town that delivers meat pies and sausage rolls. So he sends me a text always, hey, what do you want? And I tell him the list, and he gets it and brings me, however many meat pies and sausage rolls and stuff like that. And I give him a pack of Tim Tams or something like that. And it's always good fun. So, no, he's the best. I mean, he's super down to earth. He loves Australia. He loves Australian hoopers. He's all around a good guy.
That's absolutely awesome. And it definitely helps when you're on the other side of the world having a coach that just loves Australians and wants to help. And meat pies and sausage rolls in America.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're
that's
as
the
good
best
as
part.
Australia, but yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
that'd be the best part about the whole thing. Lastly, from me, and I'm sure Braden probably has something on the end, but you're getting to that stage now. Do you have a fifth year, or this is it, 4 years and that's it?
I got 4 right now, but there's like speculation they might change it.
That's
But as
yeah,
of now,
that's
I'm done
going on at
with
the
this one.
moment. Yeah. So what's the goals for Anthony Dell'Orso? Like NBA, NBL, Boomers, I'm sure everything. But what are you focused on besides the Arizona season? What are you focused on for yourself and your future?
Yeah, the NBA route is something I've always kind of said. People either look 2 different ways. Either say you're crazy or you're doing it. I think the NBA is 100% in reach. I tried it my sophomore year. I went in the draft. I did all the stuff before I went to Arizona. So I know a lot of the guys. I've worked out for a few teams already. And then since then, it's just been a trust the process kind of deal. And yeah, so the season will end, and hopefully everything goes well. Hopefully we win it all, and then I'll go on, and a bunch of my teammates will go on, and we'll all make the NBA, and everything will be good.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, just building on that, is Boomers like a priority in the future for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to play for the national team. I don't know if there's a greater achievement you can have, representing, where you're from. I think that's awesome. I've been gone for a while. I'd love to, get back and play with some other Aussies. I feel like it's been a while, so definitely on the cards and would love to get that opportunity.
Yeah, just before we finish, I do have one question. Now, being at Arizona, as Jay said, there's a lot around Arizona. It's known as a pretty big school, a party school, and there's been some absolute legends of the game, go through that school. You're also playing in a team that also features Bryce James, the son of NBA legend LeBron James. What's some crazy things you've seen around campus? Have you seen some NBA legends coming through? What's been like at Arizona?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of the history comes back, and you as bad as it sounds to say, you kind of get used to it, and you kind of take it for granted a little bit. That's where I try and pull myself back down to earth. But yeah, we got a lot of guys. I mean, before the UCLA game, we had Richard Jefferson come talk to us, about the meaning of playing UCLA. I've seen him multiple times in my time here. I've seen Channing Frye the other day. Obviously, Bryce is a big key. Haven't seen his dad yet, but legends always come around. Alums, our coaching staff. We got Jason Gardner on our staff that he's up in the rafters and won the national championship back in '97. So there's always kind of people that are coming through U of A to just spread their wisdom. Talk about their love for the game. Players and coaches. Steve Kerr came to us last year after we beat BYU. And it makes you feel good when you see that, there's a lot of people that are fans that may not, be around us all the time or stuff like that, but we've got a fan base kind of all around the country, in basketball positions, in non-basketball positions, and that kind of leads through your bloodline almost, at some point it'll go beyond me, beyond us, and, I'll go to the next people and we'll be the guys coming back and, giving them wise words of wisdom. So that's a really special thing that U of A has definitely developed over the years.
Yeah, to be a fly on the wall when Richard Jefferson gave you guys a speech would be incredible. Known as one of the funniest guys around the NBA circles, but also pretty fired up. So that would have been interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he just pops in breakfast and gives his speech, and I don't know how much wisdom he gives. He gives a lot of credit, but it's always good to see him. You're going to get a laugh, that's for sure.
Absolutely, mate. Well, it's been a absolutely great chat, really insightful, and like Jase said, I think a chat that a lot of aspiring athletes and basketball players, and in particular some parents and everything as well, could get a lot from listening to this. But mate, we're really excited to see your journey. We've been really excited to see the start to the season so far, and we can't wait to see what you and Arizona do going forward. So really appreciate your time, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, welcome back to Cut to the Jase. Of course, like we mentioned earlier in the show, we do have the fever break this week. So we thought we'd take the time to do something different today. We're giving the JC 5 points a little bit of a miss just for 1 week. And on the back of the NBL putting up a mid-season trades post last week, we're going to do our 3 trades that we think would change the NBL. But first, before we get into that, Jase, do you think ever we could see a trade window in the NBL, and do you think it would work?
I don't think it would work. I've said this for multiple reasons. So if you're in Australia right now, most people have to find their own place to rent. If they've got kids there in school, their partners have work, and their partner's work is crucial to their living. And if you're in the US, they just trade you, and normally the team pays for your flights, puts you up for a certain amount of time. So I just don't know if the money is there. Like, I look at it from my point of view. If, say, 2 years ago, I got traded from Adelaide back to Brisbane or something, for example, I would have had to pull my kid out of school, move my whole family, and then find a place to rent, break my lease where I was, which, as we all know, normally costs you more. So unless there's something built around that where there's coverage from the clubs or whatever, that would be a way it could help. But I think it would be very difficult. This might not come across in the greatest way, but imports are probably the one where you could maybe do it, just because, and I say that because a lot of them are flown over here. They're put up in apartments. They all have accommodation as part of their thing, obviously. So them getting traded doesn't necessarily change their whole living situation, just because a lot of them are in the same circumstance for different clubs. I think it would add talking points for sure. And I think you look at it at times, and we're about to get into our 3, but things that make sense. Like you might look at, say, in Adelaide right now, where they've got a DJ who's got high value, and they're not using him at the moment. Now, do I think Adelaide would really want to trade DJ? No, but they might say, well, hang on a second, what could we get for a DJ right now? And we might be able to bring another piece in, or clubs that are struggling like a Cairns or an Illawarra might be able to go and get someone. So I do think it would be interesting. I don't think it would work right now with the landscape of the NBL and how everything would have to go into it from a money point of view.
Yeah, I think if they did that, it would have to be almost like the AFL trade period where it has to be agreed on by both parties and say someone's not liking the environment they're in and wants to go somewhere else for a different opportunity. I think that's probably the only way it works. But we don't care about that because we're going to go into our 3 trades that we think will change the NBL or impact the NBL this season. Now, Jase, I'm going to go to you. We'll go one by one, actually.
Okay.
So we'll go you first. I want your biggest one. So we've got the ones listed, but I want you to go to your biggest one first.
I struggled here because we were trying to make sure it matched, right? Import for import or things like that. There's many that you think you can do, but the one that I did, which is a bit bigger, and now these teams are probably like, we would never do that, and that's fine. But I thought maybe something between Perth and Southeast, similar spots on the ladder. Both maybe at times have been looking for different things. So what I've done with there, and this is my trade, is Windler and Henshaw for Awundu and Owen Foxwell. So I've tried to give Southeast another scoring wing alongside Sobes and someone who can do multiple things. And then obviously give, ultimately, Perth, they've been looking for a point guard. So they get Foxwell and they get a very handy defender. And then Henshaw going to Southeast, it probably gives them another guy who can fill up the points and get a bit of stuff done for them. So that was my bigger trade.
Yeah, and the pace they play at probably suits Henshaw as well. And you mentioned Owen Foxwell, a point guard position comes even more important for the Wildcats with Jaron really out for 2 months. So that's a good one, Jace. I'm going my first one. My biggest one, I think, is I'm going double. And now with this, I don't care about money. So we don't really have a hard cap. We don't really have a hard cap in the NBL, so I don't care about money. I'm going Sam McDaniel and Alex Dukas to Sydney for Delhi and Bullquoll. So Dukas goes to Sydney. You get some more shooting around the likes of, Kendrick Davis, Xavier Cooks. And Sam McDaniel coming back from injury, to me, he's more reliable when he's playing than Bullquoll has been since he's been there. So I think you get a defensive stopper, a guy who can fill a role, who's tough as nails, and I think really brings something extra to that group. Now, the other guys going to Brisbane. Delhi, I think they need a point guard, right? They need a point guard. And even with Javon Freeman-Liberty now, rumor is he's going to play the point when he comes back. I think Delhi feels that better. They got some talent around that. Probably gives Delhi more responsibility, too, to try and aim towards that 2028 Olympics like he so wants. And then Bullquoll comes in, some more defense and some shooting that they need. So that's my big one. I think that works for both teams, apart from the money. But also, it takes 2 marquees away from Sydney, so they can always add an extra import if they've got some other areas they want to address as well.
Yeah, geez, that would create some movement. And once again, these are all it'd be just very interesting to see these happen in real time, right?
Yeah, 100%. What's your second, mate?
So my second one, I've tried to do something for a Tassie and Illawarra that's not massive, but might just improve, and they're both similar positions. I've gone Mason Peatling for Majuk Deng. And so my thinking here was, obviously they missed Will for a couple of games and they had Bannon. So I thought, well, Peatling can come in and he kind of suits what Tassie is, right? He gives him a Tassie type player, fill gaps, do little things, can play the 4 or the 5. And I think now they get it from Blanchfield in parts when he plays, and Blanche hasn't shot it as well this year, but I think Majuk Deng gives Illawarra that kind of foreman that can really space the floor for a JaVale McGee and give Davo Hickey some more room. So I think that just frees up some things for both teams and would slide in nicely very quickly.
Yeah, I think that addresses that sort of power forward spot that 4-man spot that we spoke about, that we thought they'd address with their import rather than another point guard with Davo Hickey there. So good one there from you, Jace. I've got Tiger Campbell going to Cairns from Marcus Lee. Now, I think Tiger Campbell, with the shooting and everything that Cairns have, is a more, suitable point guard than Andrew Andrews, and he can play the two if he wants. We know he likes getting shots up. And then Marcus Lee, yes, he's been injured at times. Sam Wardenberg's coming back. He's been in foul trouble. And to me, Tassie's the perfect fit for him. He can come off the bench. Doesn't matter if he gets in foul trouble. He can back up Will Magnay when Magnay's injured or in foul trouble. So I think that really works for both teams.
It'd be interesting, the two guards. I did want to try and do something with Tassie, with Cairns, but it was hard to make sense of different situations.
Why was it hard, Jase?
Well, because I had to, if I was trading certain players in and out, and that's what I think a few weeks ago was kind of like, well, if you look at different players in their lineup and think if I could bring in I think for them, they almost need that guard that can create and get its feet in the paint, whether that's a 1, the 2, or the 3. I think that'd help Jack. But trying to make that all align is a bit difficult at times.
Yeah, and getting something that people want back from Cairns apart from Jack McVeigh is pretty tough. You can be honest about it, Jase. You can be honest about it.
Oh, I'm sure people would love a few of those guys for their team. They'd slide in. It's what they'd have to give up. My last one, and I've gone a similar concept to what I did with my second trade, is I think both teams could use these guys, and I've gone Sean Bruce to Adelaide for Isaac White. And Isaac's got off to a pretty good start to his Adelaide journey. I think he's created a nice role for himself, and he's played at a pace that I think he could complement Sydney with as a secondary ball handler and a backup guard to change the pace for them. And I think Brucey gives Adelaide what they're after. A guy off the bench who can just come in and get people where they need. I think it helps guys like DJ, helps Bruce, helps Bryce, helps their bigs, and he could just be a calming influence that they don't have as a natural point guard.
I think that's a great one. I think it's probably out of all 6, probably the most realistic. So I like that. I like that one, Jay. So I think it gives Brucey and Whitey both a bit more opportunity as well. So my third, again, building on what we said about Perth needing a point guard, but also Benny Henschel, I think getting to a different environment where he can have a bit more of a leash and can find his offensive game again outside PJC. So I've gone Ben Henschel to the New Zealand Breakers for Isaiah Liafa. Now, I know Isaiah Liafa's form hasn't been great, but I think with a bit more responsibility, we know he can be solid at NBL level. Now, again, don't care about money because we know Henschel's on a lot more than Isaiah Liafa. And I think it unlocks Ben Henschel playing alongside PJC as well, giving him some spacing and everything. I think that works for both teams, even though I know both teams wouldn't do it. Oh, no, sorry. I think New Zealand would do it.
You never know. You never know. It depends. But no, it's like, and going back to the first point, it would be very interesting. It would change the landscape super fast if those things were possible. I just think that the money part in all this, it would need to come from different levels to make it all work. But if it ever happened, and that's what to your point, a trade period might be the answer. Imagine if the team come to a player and said, "Hey, guy, we're thinking about trading you. What do you think?" You're like, "I don't want to go anywhere." That could test some egos, but who knows? We are heading closer to things like that possibly being an option.
Yeah, we'll be very interested to see the reaction we get from this on social media. We'll get Daz, of course, to clip it up, and I'm sure we'll cop it as we did with some Boomers selections, which were more realistic than this. So I think we're going to cop it probably even more for this. But I was going to ask you if there's an environment or a team you would have liked to have been traded from during your career, but I won't put you under that type of pressure, Chase.
There's a couple.
Yeah, but that's our trade. So everyone, tell us what you think on social media. We love interacting with people, especially on our Insta page at Bounce Pass. So get on there and let us know what you think. But that's all we have time for the 10th edition of Cut to the Jase. Make sure you tune in. Of course, the WNBL as well, but the Boomers vs. Tall Blacks series. And we'll be back with more next week.